Good afternoon, and thank you for coming out this afternoon. My name is Lisa Berry. That's Lisaberry, Public Information Officer here at the Goodyear Police Department. Today we will be here to discuss the single vehicle bike crash that killed 2 innocent cyclists and injured 11 others, one of whom remains in critical condition. The crash occurred Saturday morning on the Cotton Lane Bridge in Goodyear. You will see on the screen a satellite photo that is the area of which we are referring. This afternoon, you will hear from 2 speakers. The Mayor of Goodyear, Joe Pizzillo, that is spelled Joepizzillo. And then you will hear from the Goodyear Police Chief, Santiago Rodriguez, spelled Santiago, Rodriguez, Rodriguez. You will receive an overview of this tragic incident. Please keep in mind that there are still details that cannot yet be released due to the ongoing investigation. We appreciate your patience as all those details in this case are thoroughly investigated. Please keep in mind after our 2 speakers come up and give their brief speech, they will be needing to leave because they have some prior engagements. However, I will be here for questions. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Joe Pizzillo.
I've got my thoughts down here, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything because this is really critical and important. On behalf of the City of Goodyear, I offer our heartfelt condolences to the families and friends of those who were lost and injured in this horrific, and I emphasize horrific, incident. We have a tight-knit cycling community, so this has deeply affected many across the West Valley. But a tragedy like this affects the entire community of Goodyear. Despite being the 9th fastest growing city in the nation, our community spirit and support for one another is strong, as some of the posts that we've had and we've gotten in from the city. I appreciate our great first responders who rendered aid quickly and those who are still investigating the accident. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa because unfortunately I have another meeting I have to go to. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I would like to invite Chief Rodriguez to the podium.
Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for attending. So first, I would like to take a second and share my heartfelt condolences with the families of the 2 victims that lost their lives in this crash. I also want to send out my thoughts and prayers to the families that are still struggling with and people are still healing in the hospitals. Once again, this is going to be an overview of what we can provide to you as of this point. I am being straightforward with you. We don't even have all the answers that we need to finish this investigation yet. So with that, know that the men and women here at the Goodyear Police Department, and as you heard the mayor speak about the city, we are grieving with our community. Many of us are bike riders. We have people that are out there enjoying the roads also. And with that, I'll get into, like I say, an overview of what I can discuss here today. I'd like to start off by saying that there is no indication that this was an intentional act or anything other than an isolated incident. So we don't have any indications at this point in time. Don't feel that there's anything out there like an act of terrorism or anything like that, but we are still looking into the investigation. We're always checking. So on the morning of Saturday, February 25th, 2023 at 7:57 a.m., Goodyear police were called to the scene of a fatal crash involving a large group of adult bicyclists who were hit by a truck on the Cotton Lane Bridge. Initially, that call came into our telecommunications center as a semi-truck had crashed into a group of bicyclists on the bridge. I can tell you that it was not a semi-truck involved. I can tell you that the vehicle involved in the crash was a white F-250. Once again, not a semi-truck. The Ford F-250 was traveling southbound on Cotton Lane Bridge as it crested over the Gila River, which was underneath it there. When the driver struck the barrier wall of the bridge, and then the vehicle crashed into 20 cyclists that were on the bridge itself. So there were reported 19 injuries from that crash. What we do know is, sadly, 2 of the bicyclists died from their injuries. The first is 61-year-old Karen Melissa, resident of Goodyear, who died on scene. The second rider who passed away at the hospital was 65-year-old David Carroll, who was a visitor here from the state of Michigan. The additional patients who were transported to 3 different hospitals in the valley had various injuries, one who still remains in critical condition. Speaking a little bit about the suspect in this case, Goodyear police arrested and booked into jail the driver of the vehicle, 26-year-old Pedro Quintana Luan. He was booked into the Maricopa County Sheriff's Jail on 2 counts of manslaughter, 3 counts of aggravated assault, 18 counts of endangerment, and 2 counts of causing a serious injury or death by a moving violation. He is currently in custody at the Maricopa County Jail, being held on a $250,000 bond. We've had several follow-up questions, many of which including what was the cause of the crash, and we're still investigating all of that. There are numerous interviews that we still need to do, inspections, things to that nature. Based on the facts and the circumstances presented on scene, the investigators believe that the statutory elements of the listed statutes have been met. However, like I said, further investigation is still needed. Doesn't mean that there might not be more. We're still investigating to figure out all the facts. Some have asked, is impairment a factor in this crash? What I can tell you is that a blood sample was obtained by way of a search warrant, and it's pending our laboratory analysis. We send that blood out to the Department of Public Safety, to their laboratory to have analyzed. And however, we don't know at what time that's going to be available to the investigators to look at. I want to say we are very grateful for our partnering agencies who assisted with this incident. There were nearly 40 officers or investigators out there on scene from the Goodyear Police Department, the Glendale Police Department, and the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. They responded and assisted with the incident response and also throughout the day for the investigation. Officers were on scene for approximately 12 hours processing the evidence that was out on the bridge. In addition, I also want to thank our Goodyear Fire Department, our Buckeye Fire Department, the Avondale Fire and Medical, Arizona Medical, and the Maricopa County's Attorney's Office, who also responded out to the scene to be a part of that investigation. With that, safe roads and safe community are the top priorities of the Goodyear Police Department. They're my top priority. We have had 2 cycling events in the last 2 years with no incidents. For major organized cycling events, like the one that's coming up here on the Tour de Cure, we produce traffic safety plans to ensure that we have proper police and EMS staff available to be able to have the ride. And as a reminder to the motorists, vehicles must give bicycles a 3 feet of clearance. So know that they're out there on our roads. Bicyclists not only have the legal right to travel the roads, but are treated with the same considerations as any other vehicle on the road. In fact, where bike lanes may not be available, bicyclists may occupy that first lane of travel. As I turn this back over to Public Information Officer Barry for questions, I definitely want to remind you that there are still details that we cannot release that we're still investigating, that it wouldn't be proper for us to release that information. We want to do our due diligence and investigate this properly. I appreciate your patience, as all the details in this case are being thoroughly investigated, and we'll have them available to everybody as they come available. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Lisa. Once again, my heartfelt condolences to the families that are losing their loved ones and that also, you know, have injured people in the hospital. My thoughts and prayers are with them. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a really difficult time. This is a difficult time for the community, for the biking community, for our department, for everybody involved, and we are deeply saddened. As you heard from Chief Rodriguez, he gave you a brief overview and many of the details that he can give. At this time, I am going to open it up to questions. Please keep in mind that we are specifically talking about this incident. So I will call on people. We have time for several questions, and if I don't get up to all of you, I can do some follow-up with you. If you have, you'll have my email, and you can go ahead and follow up with a question. Yes, right there.
So you guys said that there is one patient in critical condition. Are there still other patients in the hospital?
I don't have the status of how many patients are still in the hospital. We do know that the one does remain in critical condition. Our fire department hasn't been updated as to the status of the others. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, could you please confirm that this was a regular Saturday ride by the West Valley Cycle Group, and how many people were out that night?
So this was an organized ride by the West Valley Cycle Group. They do, I'm told they ride regularly, and this was just an everyday kind of ride. There were 20 cyclists that day. Yeah, in that group. Now, my understanding is there are 3 separate groups. They break into A, B, and C groups. My understanding that this was the B group. Yes.
In the IA paperwork, it said that the driver had mentioned he believed the steering wheel locked and that caused his car to drift. How are you guys investigating that, and when do you expect to have a timeline as to figure out if that was true or what happened?
So all of that is part of his statement. When our investigators interview the witnesses, that's really their account of what happened. Certainly, all of that will need to be looked into. They will look into the vehicle. They will do their due diligence to determine if, in fact, that was the case. I don't have a timeline on that, but that is all part of the ongoing investigation. Bianca?
You may not be able to comment on this yet either, but I figured I would ask. Also, in his statement, he said that he had smoked marijuana the night before. I know that this was an early crash and early ride. Is that part of the investigation still, or have you been able to rule out whether or not that?
Well, again, what we did talk about is that a blood sample was taken by way of search warrant, and so those results will be analyzed by the lab, and we will know more once those results come back. Back there in the back? You? Yes.
I'm going to defer to Mark as he's being asked.
Okay.
So 2 questions. You started out with the illusion that the driver hit the barrier, I assume the cement barrier on the southbound lane. Were there witnesses other than the cyclists that saw that vehicle strike that barrier?
So again, our investigators are doing their due diligence, and in addition to the witnesses who were riders that day, maybe any passersby, the Goodyear Police Department is looking for any additional witnesses who may be out there who would come forward and help us with our investigation, and we do ask that you call the Goodyear Police Department with any information. And remember, no bit is too small. Anything can be helpful. Yes.
Hi, I'm Paul Tyson. I've been riding with the group for 19 years. A few of us were in the crash that day. I woke up on it, and I just haven't heard any speak about the passenger that was in the truck with the driver. Has that been addressed? Is anybody even aware of that?
From what I'm told in the investigation, the driver of the truck was a single occupant in that vehicle. So again, this is part of the ongoing investigation, and that's good to know. So if you have additional information, please do contact our investigators. Again, this is very fluid. These are the facts we know at the time. However, circumstances, things can change. As we learn more, things change. And so that's why we don't want to give out We don't want to speculate. We don't want to give out information that we don't know for sure to be true. We're going to stick with the facts here. Yes?
Did I hear the chief correctly, that he said that the vehicle struck the barrier prior to striking cyclists?
That is what is being reported at this time. Again, this is all part of that ongoing investigation. As our investigators are able to interview more witnesses, the picture will become much more clear. Yes, sir.
When do you expect to have those lab results back?
Unfortunately, we don't have any estimated time of arrival. They do go over to DPS lab, and we don't know when those results will be in. Yeah, yes.
Can you just confirm the number of people that were involved that were injured? It was 19?
Yes, there were 19. There were 20 cyclists total, and 19 were injured. Bianca.
Do you have anything on this suspect's history? Does he have a criminal history that you've been able to find?
We don't have anything that we see as contact with this individual in Goodyear. He is a resident of the city of Phoenix, so I would encourage you to check with the courts if there's any other criminal history. Yeah.
Did the driver indicate where he was coming from and going?
He indicated that he was coming from picking up a workload and going to a work site, so we believe this was a work-related travel for him in his personal vehicle. Yeah.
Can we go over the charges and how police were able to determine why they chose these specific charges over other ones?
Well, I'm not going to go into the details of the charges. Those can be found on the Maricopa County website. We also have handed you a packet with the charges. In addition, on your way out this afternoon, you will each be handed a copy of the Form 4 as a courtesy so that you can review that in detail. I know there are so many questions. We have so many questions. This is a devastating tragedy that has hit our community, and we are all suffering together. We encourage your patience. Be patient with us so we can be thorough in our investigation. We want, and I think we all have the same goal in this, is to bring closure and healing and justice to these families. Not only the families of those who have passed away, but those families and those individuals who are injured and have a long road ahead of them. So at this point, I'm going to cut it off because there's not a whole lot more I can answer, but we do really appreciate you coming out today, and thank you so much for joining us.